Welcome back to Extraordinary Women on thatchannel.com. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm joined by Bonnie Flatt, who is a leadership coach. Later in the segment, before we take a break, I'm going to have my regular Good to Know Minute when I'll ask Bonnie for her top tip on creating a successful life. Bonnie, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Now, you're a leadership coach, you're a career coach, and initially you practiced or you were working in the field of law and HR. What initially drew you into law to begin with, even though I know you didn't practice as a lawyer?
Right. Well, actually, I started in science.
Okay, this is great. Science.
Right. So
Yeah.
I graduated with a degree in reproductive biology and biochemistry. And then I went into law school because I really wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to work with people. And so I went into law school thinking it would be a way for me to combine my science and my law and do it in that sense. And I articled, and I really loved the intellectual stimulation of law, and then ended up doing human resources.
That's great. Science to law to human resources to now coaching.
Right.
You've got a great, well-rounded background. Why the career transition into coaching?
Into coaching? I think, well, for most of my career, I was actually working with executives, and I was dealing mostly with executive compensation. And even as I was designing programs to deal with how you paid executives, what was really interesting for me was, well, why do people behave the way they behave? And it's not just about money, it's about behavior. And so I was always fascinated by coaching and helping people see how their behavior impacted others. So about a year ago, I decided I'd start taking some coaching courses. And the first day I showed up at class and I said, this is it, I've come home. This is where I belong.
There's a feeling in there, like a knowing that this was right for you.
Yeah, within about 10 minutes into the class, it was like, I have finally found my place after 25 years. It was great.
And you had mentioned to me in earlier conversation some wisdom that your son imparted that helped you make your decision.
Oh, that was in terms of whether I was going to go look for another job or coach. Yeah. So at the time I was working for an accounting firm, and I was building their HR strategy practice. My son said, well, when are you going to step in and do what's important for you and ask us to make choices? And that was a really a big turning point in my life. And it was the wisdom of a 14-year-old who doesn't have all that other stuff that most of us as adults have, to step in and say, okay, it's now or never.
Now, are you really Yoda?
Yes. I believe I am Yoda. Yoda in the sense that I can see inside of people who they are as leaders. Oftentimes, I can see the magnificence of people before they can see their own magnificence. It's a gift.
What would you see in them?
The possibilities, everything that's out there for them. So many of us spend our lives talking about what we can't do rather than what's possible for us. And just like Yoda said to Luke, the world's around you, and use the force to direct you. That's what I do. I hold the mirror up for people to see what's possible, and I challenge them to go and do it. Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try. And I was actually talking to my daughter about it last night, and I said, if you say you're going to try, you're not putting 100% into it. You either do it or you don't do it.
Do you think when we say we're going to try, there's always something in the back of our heads that says, we're not going to do it, or we're going to fail, or maybe we're not going to do it? Do you think that try is a word that we should maybe delete from the English language?
Well, I get more curious about the word try, because try to me means there's some form of resistance or something that's holding us back from what's possible. So it's usually for me it's something good to explore with someone, because many times we don't even realize we're using the word try. And so what's in the word? So rather than delete it, because then you're asking somebody to be something that they're not. Look and see what's in that.
Well, the word intend or intentions much more, it's stronger than try. So I know that in my own life, I've when I catch myself using the word try or wanting to use the word try, I'll swap it with intend.
Ah, very good.
Yeah. I think it's much more empowering.
Right. But you see, that's something that you've created for yourself, so that's great. And that would be wonderful for others to create that for themselves as well.
Now, success. Let's talk about that for a bit.
Sure.
What is success to you?
To me, success is living a life that has a purpose and is aligned with the values that are important to me. So I've gone through this journey of really connecting to what are my values, and so each and every day I'm living my life aligned to those values. And so success is really about defining what is really important to you. For some people, success may mean making a certain dollar amount. For others, success may mean feeding and clothing the poor. It's really connecting to why you're put on this earth. What's your purpose in life? What are the values? What's your noble cause? And then living it.
As someone had said to me recently, who had been in prison for some time, said success could also be, did you get that extra piece of bread for dinner? It really makes you look at success differently, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So that's great. It could depend on the context in which you're living your life at the time.
How do we now? You're a leadership coach. People come to you to help them get to another level in their careers. How do you, when you're working with them and you're talking about success, how do you help them measure success? And is it possible?
I do believe it's possible because if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. So the first thing is to really define what success means for them. So that can take a long time to really understand where it is that you want to go. I had a client that I'm working with, and I've been working with him for over a year, where it's taken him this long to say, yes, I do have a purpose in life, and now I know what it is. But when we started, I don't think he felt that he had a purpose or that he knew where he was going, and yet on the surface he was very successful. He was a highly paid professional, but he wasn't really connected or happy with what he was doing, but he was making a lot of money. So to some people, it looked like he was very successful, but to him, was he successful? Good question.
And is it individual then, in terms of what we feel when we're feeling successful? Do you see any trends, or is it really almost always unique to the individual?
I believe it's individual. I mean, there are so many people that I'm working with today where on their surface they have the trappings of success. They have the beautiful homes, the cottages, they travel a lot, and there's something missing in their soul. Or if you look in organizations, you've got companies that are profitable, but they could be so much more profitable if they were clearer on what their purpose was. And you see some other organizations that are really making a difference in the world because they've defined what their purpose is and why they're here, and they're building their policies and programs and teams around that purpose. It's the concept of tribal leadership. And so to me, success really has to start from why are you here, and then building around that why, which it all links back to living your values and your purpose, whether you're an executive, a secretary, or an organization. It's all linked back to that common theme.
Do you think that we all know deep down what our purpose is?
No. Well, oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. I think deep down we probably do, but many of us don't know how to find it. And we're so busy doing that we don't know the questions to ask ourselves, or we don't necessarily give ourselves permission to take the time to explore it.
And of course, that's where a coach comes in handy.
Yes.
But what about for people who maybe don't have, maybe they don't have the means to hire a coach, or they haven't even thought of hiring a coach? What could they do to, determine what their purpose is?
First, slow down. Bailey was talking a little bit about it in her session about taking
Bailey Baez, our first guest. That's right. Yeah.
To just take some time and start asking yourself some questions. I mean, we all have the power to start looking within ourselves as to who we are and where we're going, and take that time to say, what am I here for? What's my purpose? What's my noble cause? Why am I put on this earth? Those are hard questions to answer, but I believe we all have the answers inside of ourselves.
So, we talk about the trappings, the house, the big house, the bigger the better, the cars, the status symbols. And if this is not really helping us or leading us to feel successful inside or fulfilled or joy, doesn't hurt. But if it's not, for most people, will say, the money and the trappings really is not, I don't feel any more fulfilled. What's going on? Why do we keep looking for the bigger houses and we keep seeking the trappings?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not in people's minds, but I know when I was doing a lot of executive compensation and I was working with the CEOs of some very large companies, I used to ask them that question: when's enough enough? How come you want to just keep making more money? And the answer I would get is, it's a scorecard. For many people, they want to compare themselves to others, and they want to at least be on the same footing, if not more than others. But my belief, or I wouldn't be doing this, is that times are changing and people are starting to look at what else is there in life. Is this all there is? And whether it's because you have an epiphany for some reason, something happens in your life, people start looking and saying, what's next? What else can I be doing? And that's when the shift occurs, and it may occur at 20, at 30, at 40, but at some point people stop and say, so what's next?
Now, before we go on with what's next, we're going to take a break, and before we take the break, I've got my Good to Know Minute. I know you've got a great tip, Bonnie.
So my Good to Know Minute is get really clear on your purpose and values so they become part of your soul, and then live a life that's aligned to that purpose and values, and you will be successful.
Thank you. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, more with Bonnie Flatt. Welcome back to Extraordinary Women. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm speaking with Bonnie Flatt. Now, you're a coach. What are some reasons that someone should really have a career or a leadership coach in their life?
To have someone hold up a mirror and to ask the questions. So from a leadership perspective, it would be to help you understand, become more self-aware. So understand some of your blind spots, some of the behaviors that you may be doing that may be creating issues with your team. From a career perspective, it's like what we were talking about before the break. You may be looking at making a significant change in who you are and where you're going, and having someone there to help you make that transition would be helpful. And the most interesting thing for me is I was a consultant my entire career, and I was always there helping people find solutions. I'm not there to help find solutions anymore. I'm just there to ask all the questions. The client has all the answers. So a really good coach is someone who has a lot of questions, great listening, and helps the client find all the answers inside of them.
Now, what is some advice that you can give someone who is going through a career transition right now or plans to make a significant transition? What can they do?
Take risks and really be ready to step into what's possible. The people that I will work with are those who I like to think of it as that the pain of what they're in is greater than the fear of what's out there. Because to make a transition, just like any other change, you have to blow up the assumptions you hold about yourself right now and create new assumptions, new beliefs. And in between, there's this no man's land where you're kind of exploring new opportunities or new ideas. And that's a scary time. And so you need to sort of step into that unknown and create a whole new network to support you at the same time. And so whether it's having a coach and having a group of people to support you, it's hard. And for a lot of people, it's easy to fall back into, well, it's just the way it is, and that's how I'm going to stay. And so the people that I find are most successful are those who say, I've had enough, I'm ready to move on, and I'm ready to try something new.
Of course, creativity, having written a book about creativity myself called The Whispering Heart, Your Inner Guide to Creativity, and in my research and in understanding in my own life that creativity is first and foremost an act of destruction. You need to destroy before you can build up.
Right.
And you need to destroy an old life before you can create a new life.
Right.
And even with your beliefs, destroy old beliefs before you can take on new ones.
Sure.
So it sounds like that's what you're saying. You have to blow up your assumptions.
Right. Well, in any change situation, whether you're dealing with an organizational change or an individual change, you have to blow up old assumptions to create new ones. And there's a path that you have to go through, and in doing that, you have to create a structure and a network to help you do it. And there's a process that gets followed. And so for a lot of people, it's that period of time between blowing up your old assumptions and creating the new ones where is the hardest.
It doesn't feel good to the senses, does it?
No.
We don't like it.
No, and I mean, I've lived it in the last year and a half, and if I didn't have a support group and it wasn't just a support group to believe in me, but it was to believe in what was possible and to know that I could achieve what my dream was, I probably would have gone and gotten that next job that was like every other job I had.
So people around you in your old world would have been saying, go get that job that gives you security, perhaps?
Right. Oh, and I had some of those, and I mean, I think they were doing it with lots of love and support and intent, but they weren't the network I had to keep, because it would have been too easy for me to fall back and go get that next job. And so I had to create a whole new network of people who believed in what I was trying to achieve and saw the possibilities and would say to me, no, don't go get that next job. Go keep doing what you're doing, because I believe that this is possible.
So what do you do with, your former network of people that, resonated with you in your former world? What do you do?
Well, that's a good question. I guess it depends. If it's family, you keep them, but you keep them in a different way. If it's friends, it's a decision you make at that time. In some cases, I've had to just recreate my whole new network and say goodbye to some of the others.
You can do that in a loving way. Just maybe perhaps not expose yourself as much or spend as much time with them out of love for yourself,
right.
Creating your new world.
Right.
Doesn't sound like there's anything wrong with that.
Right. Well, and I love what you just said, Shannon, about love for yourself. It's when you love yourself and when you step into your own magnificence, that's when you've really achieved where you are, because you're stepping into who you are and the power of yourself, and then you see what's possible.
What does it mean to step into your magnificence? Magnificence.
Yeah. For me, what it means is that you can do anything you put your mind to. Now, I mean, within reason, in the sense that you have to work at it, you have to set a goal, a plan, and go forth. But it's, instead of creating that little box that says I can't, it's that box of I will. Or, and it's probably not even a box, it's what's possible, what do I want, and how am I going to get there. So it's creating that plan, it's that action, it's that forward movement, it's that granting of power to yourself and those around you. And if you look at it from a leadership perspective, as a leader of a team, when you believe that who you are as a leader and you step into that, you give power to yourself, and then you give power to your team. And then your team steps into what's possible for them, and then they give power to themselves and to their team, and it's like this domino effect, and it's magnificent. And what happens is it becomes a community of we and what we can achieve and what we can contribute, and it's no longer about the I, it's about the we, and magic happens.
Now, for those going through career transitions, take risks, blow up assumptions, create new ones, and build a new network. Now, is there anything else?
Really get to know your strengths.
Okay.
Because that's really important. I mean, when we talk about you can achieve whatever you put your mind to, there is a reality around it. I mean, if you wanted to become an astronaut and you don't have the physical ability or the intellectual capability, then that's not going to happen. So know your strengths and leverage those strengths. Know your capabilities. So those are some of the things. And for some of my clients that I'm working with on career transition, we spend a lot of time at the front end looking at who am I, what are my values, what's my purpose, what are my strengths, what are my capabilities, who do I know in my network, how can I enhance that network. But we're looking at it from a values and a purpose rather than from an assessment or a ticking off the box. In my career, I like to say I've been shrink-wrapped multiple times. I've gone through more assessments than I can think of, but that never really meant much for me until I went through coaching, and I have a phenomenal coach who's really helped me understand who I am and what I bring to the table. So now when I go to networking events, or if I were to go back into the workforce at some point and look for that full-time employee job, I would look at it in a very different way, because I now know who I am and what my purpose is. But I also know the strengths and competencies and skills that I have and what value I can bring to an organization.
Do you think it's possible for us to have it all, Bonnie?
Yes, I do. I think it, first of all, means, what does have it all mean? So you have to get really clear on that. And then... So
what having it all mean to me may be different than having it all to you.
Right. But what's really important is to get clear on what having it all is. It's very easy for us to say, well, I can't do this or I can't do that. I'd rather turn it around to say, what do you want? What does ideal look like? And then from there say, what are you prepared to say yes to, and what are you prepared to say no to achieve it? So there's a different energy level when you look at it from that perspective. When you set a goal first and say, what is it that I really want, and what's possible from there, and then see what the results are. And I'll share a story with you to illustrate this.
Please do.
My daughter and her school are going to the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh next year. They were picked out of hundreds of applications, and so all of the parents are organizing a fundraising drive to get them there. For a lot of time, the parents were saying, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. And so there were a lot of naysayers in that room. And at one point I got up and I said, rather than us saying, we can't do this, what would it be like for each and every one of us to imagine what's possible? Let's think of the end goal. We're getting our 18 of these kids who are creating an original Canadian piece to get to Edinburgh to perform this amazing work of art next year. What would it be like for all of us to step in and say, what would be possible? What do we want to achieve? What is our goal, and how are we going to get there? And then let's talk about how we're going to do it. And every single one of those parents in the room stepped up and said, okay, we're in. And the energy in that room changed because we moved from saying what we couldn't do to what was possible. That's what having it all means for me.
Well, thank you so much. Our time is almost up, and you know, it really has flown by. For anyone who wants to find out more about you and your services, where can they find you on the net?
So they can go to my website at bonnieflatt.com, and they can find me on Facebook at Bonnie Flatt, and they can email me through that as well.
Bonnie, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your advice, your wisdom, and your good to know minute. Really appreciate it.